Hi guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a special video we're going to do today with our friend Charting Man Dan. How you going, Dan?
Very good, Alex. Good to be here.
Now I'll let you explain the reasons why we wanted to do this, but basically Dan's one of the best chartists I know, and we're going to go through the technicals, and I'm also going to talk about a few of the fundamentals. So what's been happening with these coins, and try and look at that relationship between the charts and what's been playing out, especially compared to Bitcoin.
Yep. So we've obviously had the first bullish move on Bitcoin in a while, and we're noticing a shift where Bitcoin is gaining some of its dominance back slowly. In my opinion, that's due to the ETF hype and the potential that people are holding on to their coins a little bit longer, taking less profit. But I always want to know, Bitcoin's our benchmark. How do other names compare to Bitcoin? So I want to see which names are stronger versus Bitcoin, which names are weaker, and then formulate a trading strategy based off of that. So running down the comparison of this is our benchmark and then comparing all the names to the Bitcoin chart, I think can give us a really good picture on where we stand on individual coins. And obviously fundamentals are important as well. And I think a mix of both fundamental and technical is the ideal way to be informed in the market.
Yeah, so thanks to everyone that's voted for those 10 coins, and we're going to see how this goes, and we might make it a regular episode. Let's see how we go.
So yeah, let's kick it off. I think we've got first on the list ZRX, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, cool. So do you want to bring up the charts first, Dan, or?
Sure.
I'll just get you on full screen. Awesome. So everyone's looking at the Bitcoin chart here. So do you want to bring up 0x and I'll have a little talk about it, or do you want to talk about Bitcoin first?
Sure, Head. This is ZRX on the weekly. Go for it.
Oh, cool. So 0x is one of my favorite coins. We've been following this one basically since the start. So they're a protocol for building all the decentralized exchanges on top of. So in the future, a lot of people are excited about decentralized exchanges because you can just plug in your hardware wallet and you can trade to Bitcoin or other tokens and stable coins straight from your hardware device. So we've already seen a few different exchanges, Radar Relay, Paradex and DDEX, that are all starting to increase volume and all use those order books to relay back and forth to each other. So very exciting.
Cool. So I ranked the charts. I just went through the 10 names initially with a very quick overview, and we ranked them really what's looking the strongest against Bitcoin and what's looking the weakest. So these first few names are going to be the strongest, then we got weaker, and then we got weakest. And ZRX is definitely one of the strongest names. It's very clearly in a weekly uptrend. It's looking like we might form an equilibrium at this point where we have our all-time high. And again, these are all BTC pairings, but we have the all-time high, the low of the pullback. This might be our lower high here, and we're going to be looking for a higher low to maintain this tightening range. So if we look at the daily time frame, we can see a clear uptrend on the daily, an uptrend on the weekly. Bulls are pretty comfortable overall. The first red flag would be a break of 122, the support level here on the daily. We're still looking to form a higher low compared to that level. We're just not confident that it has formed just yet. So overall, that would be the first red flag, our resistance for continuation, and the bulls proving they're in full control is 186. But overall, if you are a bull looking at the daily and weekly time frame here, you're pretty comfortable, again, especially compared to all the other names where ZRX is standing out as a clear lead bull.
Cool. Next on the list, we've got Stellar Lumens. So this one started off as a hard fork of Ripple, but it's really differentiated itself recently. So they've got partnerships with IBM. They said they're going to be looking to make a US dollar stablecoin built on top of the Stellar network. So that's fantastic news for that community. Recently got Sharia certification, so maybe that allows for another wave of possible investment. They've got ICOs starting to launch on top of Stellar. They're one of those 5 coins that can be possibly listed on Coinbase. So yeah, there's a lot happening, and that community certainly matured and got its own direction now.
Yep, definitely important to note that Coinbase tidbit, because we know that any coin that gets listed on tidbit, or any coin that gets listed on Coinbase, is going to have a significant reaction, both short term and then once it's actually listed. And people like me who are trading on only Coinbase will have access to other markets to be trading. But it's a beautiful weekly equilibrium. And I love these nice clear setups where we have higher lows and lower highs. And it's looking like our lower high might have just formed right here. So the range that I'm watching is our weekly higher low, which is down at 2902, and our most recent lower high up at 438. And I would say sometime in the next month, in the next 4 weeks, we're going to see either a clear break of the lower highs or a clear bear break of the higher lows. And that's going to give us a lot more clarity in terms of where we're headed as we approach the fall and winter. So I love these type patterns. And this is one where if I were waiting for this pattern to break, I would just write it down on a notepad next to my computer, weekly equilibrium, XLM and then just check in on it every day and get prepared for when we're close to the break, establishing the game plan from that point forward. So real nice weekly pattern to be watching. The daily chart shows some healthy consolidation going on after a pretty big bullish past 2 weeks we've had here. So all in all, bulls are comfortable here as well. They just want to see a break of those weekly lower highs to be extremely comfortable. But this is definitely one of the more bullish setups, as the weekly higher lows are still very clearly intact.
Cool. So next up, we've got Power Ledger, and this is an Australian-based project we've been following since before the ICO, trying to decentralize the energy grid. So some states in Australia already have every third or fourth house with solar panels. They'll just be able to sell their power to their neighbours and basically power the energy grid rather than coming from far away. So pretty exciting project. They've got trials in India, a partnership with KEPCO, plenty happening there. And this year they are going to begin rolling out what's called asset germination, where holders of Power Ledger tokens can decide to fund renewable energy projects. So we might want to build a wind farm in a certain town that needs renewable energy or so on.
Very cool. That's news to me. So POWR this is where we start shifting from names that are now starting to lose their weekly uptrend. So there's not many names that are very strong versus Bitcoin. And we just went through the two that still have their uptrend. We can see POWR breaking the support level of 3.6 is definitely a bear break. And we're still in a clear lower high, lower low pattern. It's just not as weak as the rest of the names that we're going to be looking at. So the most important short-term resistances are 5.989, followed by 6.969, and our recent low that the bulls just formed, which again was a lower low, that was down at 0.00003. So we have to see these weekly higher lows and break of the lower highs begin to shift this trend, but this is one that has not dropped as significantly as some of the other names. And what stands out to me is volume. You can see that last leg of volume down where we did break that support, very, very low bear volume, followed by some solid bull volume on the bounce. So let's see over the next few weeks if we can change this weekly trend and get some follow through.
So next up, Neo, and that's got that Chinese X factor about it, which I guess can work both ways. So on the run up, it was really outperforming everything, and people were excited that this was the Chinese Ethereum and so on. But look, I think that Neo is going to regain a lot of ground. They've got a lot of ICOs launching on top of it, and that drove Ethereum when you have that demand for the underlying token for all those ICOs. They've been talking about a new white paper. They're aware that they're fairly centralized in terms of how many nodes are sort of controlling the network, and that they want to decentralize and advance further. And they recently created a Chinese pegged stablecoin. So think of that as a tether for China, and that's very interesting to see if that's going to be successful and if the Chinese government are going to like something like that. So they've had some great ICOs recently, Ontology and The Key, but one to keep an eye on that's lost a lot of love from the community lately, I guess.
Yeah, definitely in a slow fade pullback where pretty much all of 2018 has just been weekly lower highs and lower lows, especially most recently. So I would draw the clear lower highs here on the weekly time frame. And in terms of support, we have no support nearby. We can see because of that big bull run that you were talking about, there's a lack of support in terms of price action established. So we're pretty much in a little bit of a free fall, which makes it hard to try and time any kind of entries. This big bounce back in early July saw no follow through. We've already broken below that level. So at this point, this is the kind of name where you need to patiently wait for the trend to change on the daily time frame with higher lows and higher highs, which are a long way away from happening. Otherwise, the strategies for these names, as we start to go down this line, they're going to get more and more beat up. So there will be short-term oversold bounce trades for, day trades. But in terms of swing entries, I personally would want to see daily trend changes to have the swing trend in my favor before establishing any longer-term positions.
So next up, Zcash. So this is a privacy coin, and they've been in the headlines a lot lately with getting some pushback from some exchanges and some governments. This one's actually got transparency or optional privacy. So I believe that's why Coinbase, again, have chosen this as one of the coins to possibly list, because it does have that transparency option. Now, the privacy mechanism with this one actually gets stronger the more users you have, the way that it kind of pools transactions. So the success of this one is going to be determined, again, by how many users are using it and in a private fashion, and that makes your the way that you use it anonymously more attractive.
So another one with weekly lower highs and lower lows, but our most recent lower low is not getting a ton of follow through. The bulls are attempting to hold the support level, so we're not in a free fall. We have a resistance level of 311 as the last weekly lower high. And in terms of support, the bulls are trying to hold the 242 area. But if we look at the daily chart in terms of trying to change this trend, it's similar to NEO in the sense that we saw a big bull move. This one was in mid-July rather than early July. But again, a lack of follow-through after these big bull moves just shows a lot of profit-taking and a lot of fading as Bitcoin is capturing this attention and capturing people's hopes for this potential ETF. So there is still a little bit of support here, 242, a little double bottom that a bottom fishing play could potentially be played off of, where if it breaks, you get stopped out. But otherwise, again, another one that we want to see the longer term trends shift back to bull before we're confident in any longer term trades.
So Bitcoin Cash, this one's always very interesting. But basically, they've had another hard fork to upgrade to 32 megabyte blocks. So while Bitcoin has SegWit and 1 megabyte blocks, Bitcoin Cash is positioning themselves, I guess, if we go back to that situation in December where Bitcoin is to have crazy high fees, maybe Bitcoin Cash does capture some of that that use case and people switch over to it. But they've re-enabled some opcodes, so you can actually possibly do smart contracts on Bitcoin Cash in the future. And look, they believe that on-chain scaling is the best way to go, whereas the Bitcoin believers, we're working on second layer solutions like Lightning Network and all that. So it remains to be seen. The free market will decide which one is the true Bitcoin, I guess, going forward.
Yes, indeed. I've certainly had bunches of feedback on my videos whenever I don't say the right things about BCH fundamentals. But weekly equilibrium, this is another good one because it's a clear tightening range. High, low, lower high, higher low, lower high, and we're looking for a higher low to form. It would certainly be a red flag if we break this 9054 level, and it would break us out of the equilibrium bearish. But if we can hold this level, we could stay in this tightening pattern the way it's been going for another 3-4 months even. So bulls need to show up sooner rather than later and change this daily trend. It's a clear daily trend of lower highs. Once we change the daily trend, that's when we're confident our weekly higher low will be set. But again, we're a long way away from that happening. Have to see daily higher lows and higher highs to see our weekly higher low established for the bulls to try and head back up to the 12-13 range.
So Icon, ICX, so this is a Korean-based project currently undergoing token swap to launch their mainnet. So be aware if you've got your coins on exchanges or if you need to do anything in regard to that. But basically, these guys are trying to build the infrastructure backbone for a lot of other projects to build on top of. And there's talk that this has been very popular in Korea already, and it's all about signing on businesses. Their mission is to hyperconnect the world, and obviously all these blockchains need to talk to each other in the future. That's their mission, and one that I think is looking more favorable now that Korea have sort of said, look, we're going to open up our stance towards crypto and get some friendly regulation. So keep an eye on that one.
So this one, what stands out to me on the weekly time frame first thing is the bear volume the past 5 weeks. So we have our high, low, lower high. The bulls attempted to stay in the equilibrium here. We had a bullish reversal candlestick on the weekly. It was not confirmed, and that's when we started to see the bear volume really pick up in 6 out of the last 7 weeks. So breaking support. Again, lower highs and lower lows on the weekly. We're still clearly in a downtrend. The daily chart very clearly has done nothing to change the trend, just lower highs and lower lows. And again, just have to patiently wait. Like if you're looking to establish long-term positions, we want the trend in our favor rather than trying to catch a falling knife. So at this point, the last lower high is 234, and the bulls are attempting to build support at 177, but not very confident just yet as we are still hovering around this level in daily oversold conditions.
Mesa Go, so one of my favorites and a coin that I'm very bullish on long term. So they're building on top of Ethereum, but they're building on top of Plasma, which is one of the scaling solutions, which is basically blockchains within blockchains. So they're trying to build a e-commerce platform with all these what they're calling e-wallets for payment providers. So think of that as being able to issue crypto or fiat or gaming tokens, loyalty points, anything really, and hook up to the main network. So this is sort of competition, or even they can use it in the likes of PayPal, Alipay, and Stripe. They've already got trials with McDonald's in Thailand, which are going really well. So I think this one's going to be huge going forward.
So the difference here, comparatively, just going right back to ICX, you can see the weekly ICX volume clearly shows high bear volume when that support was lost, but we look at OMG and it's low bear volume when support is lost. So that does stand out to me. But essentially what I imagine here visually as I see this move, the bulls looking great, and then losing the higher lows, it's almost like they're climbing up a rope and then they just start slipping and they give back a little bit of the ground that they had made up. So this tells me that it's just very clearly an environment that Bitcoin is thriving comparatively to a bunch of these altcoins where they were both going down, both Bitcoin and the altcoins. And now that Bitcoin's bouncing, the altcoins are not bouncing with it as significantly. So still sliding down as far as the daily chart goes. Another one that is close to oversold and actually just coming off of oversold, but another one that has nowhere near of a sign of changing this daily chart just yet. These are the clear lower highs that stand out to me. Anything under 1155 is still going to be a lower high, a little bounce attempt right now. Needs some more follow through. And again, look at these exponential moving averages, these 12 and 26 period. On this daily chart, they've just been a great guide where the bulls have only really gotten above both of them once and saw no follow through. So that's my visual guide. As long as those are resistances, we're still very clearly in a downtrend and looking for a change in that trend to start to see some weekly bounce.
Ripple, so another one that's pretty dividing in the community. But look, Ripple sort of falls in that category of a lot of things in the crypto space where people are scared about what might be a security. And from a lot of the criteria that SEC have been talking about, Ripple probably does fall into that category of being a security. But now we're seeing a lot of people come out and saying, look, we might list securities in the future. You know, it's not the be all and end all. So a lot of that uncertainty, I believe, is going to clear up going forward. We're going to see a lot of securitized tokens. Whether or not Ripple want to fall into that camp or not remains to be seen. But for it to be successful, they really do need to form partnerships and get the banks actually using that XRP token for trade. And we haven't really seen that yet.
So this is one where we had a nice tight pattern on the weekly chart. And this is one that I would have wanted to stop out of if I were in long positions, just because we clearly changed the trend. You can see the volume dropping slowly off. And then as soon as we lost this weekly higher low of 749, that's when the bear volume started to tick up. So we've seen now 5 weeks of high bear volume compared to the 5 weeks previously. And it's just in a significant steady pullback like the majority of coins. Again, at this point, the altcoins that are in an uptrend on the weekly chart are very clearly standing out because there's not many of them. And we can see Ripple, XRP, BTC just all out dumped. The daily RSI got under 20. We're seeing a weak oversold bounce attempt. And as far as the daily chart trending, nowhere in sight. The last lower high is all the way up at 7185. And here we are down at about 605, attempting a bounce and not seeing any follow through.
So VeChain, another coin that's recently making the switch to their own mainnet. This is a fantastic project trying to do logistics, a bit of everything. Another one of those platforms that's trying to build the infrastructure to partner with a lot of people and build a lot of projects on top of it. It's recently seen a lot of weakness as we had a lot of people locked up with their masternode tokens that were sort of told, look, you can free those up while we're making the switch to mainnet. And some people lose that masternode status, but others have chosen to sell by the looks of those charts now that their tokens are no longer locked up in the switch to mainnet.
Yeah, we can see the increase in bear volume and the speed is picking up to the downside. And that's a common thing with a lot of stocks. There's a lot of stocks that have, locked up share deals. And then when those shares become free trading, we see downward pressure. So that's just a supply and demand kind of thing where supply of shares or coins has a big uptick and the demand cannot keep up with it. So we end up pulling back. So another one where we are pulling back significantly, the daily RSI got absolutely crushed all the way down to 14 and below. It's a weak bounce attempt at this point. We're going to need a daily higher low compared to 213. And we're going to have to break the top of this bounce of 2569 to see an attempt at a trend change. But again, you can see this daily chart just the last week, very significant bear volume. And that's what led to it getting so crushed in oversold conditions.
Yeah, if you want to just keep that chart up for a second, Dan, I think this one's a fantastic representation of the kind of feel in the community in general at the moment. So VeChain's an awesome project that I'm bullish on long term, but this just shows that people are making that switch to Bitcoin for that sort of that ETF play and excitement as we've spoken about. But that's very clear that people that had possibly coins that were locked up or untouchable are making a move into Bitcoin going forward. So that's very interesting to watch how this plays out.
Yes, sir. And there we go. There's our 10 coins.
Awesome. So thanks for joining us today, Dan. Let's see if everyone's found that helpful. And it's funny, I've certainly learned something today, so I hope you have too.
I did. I enjoy the fundamentals as well. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.